because he couldn't get Beyonce to stop people.
Guess you didn't know your daughter well enough, because she just started all the girls.
Okay, this tea about Beyonce possibly being Solange's mother instead of her sister has been floating around forever, right? And yeah, plenty of people already stamped it as fake. No debate there. But what if this story didn't just come from random gossip blogs or board chatter? What if it actually came from someone who was right there, seeing everything up close? Now it gets messy. We're talking about Mama Tina's ex-husband, Beyonce's former stepdad, Richard Lawson, and things are not looking quiet at all. After that wild divorce, word on the street is he's been dropping little hints and stirring the pot about the Knowles family, and not in a low-key way either. People are saying he's been feeding into those same rumors, hinting that Solange might actually be Beyonce's real daughter, and that alone has folks doing double takes. I went down that rabbit hole myself and listened closely, and wow, I wasn't ready for how deep this goes. The more you dig, the more questions start stacking up, and it begins to feel way too detailed to just brush off like it's nothing. What really grabbed my attention is this. The biggest talking point from Richard Lawson and Tina Knowles' 2024 divorce wasn't even about the money, which is crazy when you think about how big their names are. It wasn't stacks of cash making noise, it was that gag order, and that's where things start getting real interesting. Court documents pointed straight to a strict non-disclosure agreement and a heavy disparagement clause. Basically, Richard can't speak on the Knowles family at all. No slip-ups, no interviews, no side comments, nothing. Now think about that for a second. He was married to Tina for years, so he was in rooms most people will never step into, seeing details the public never gets to touch. If he ever came across official records or private family information, then that NDA could be the one thing keeping everything sealed tight and out of the spotlight. So now people keep asking the same question. Did he try to use what he knew as leverage during that $300,000 settlement? Nobody's confirmed anything, but the whispers just keep getting louder and harder to ignore. Now let's get into what's already been floating around about this whole situation, and you can decide for yourself what sounds real and what feels off.
She was trained at the esteemed Berklee College of Music, handpicked by my very good friend, Terry Lynn Carrington, Dr. Terry Lynn Carrington, who put together Beyonce's entire female band, which was Matthew Knowles' idea.
For starters, there's this claim from someone who said they worked for the Texas Department of Health and they allegedly found Solange's birth certificate listing her birth year as 1974, and that alone had people doing serious double takes. Now, I haven't personally seen any document like that, so take it lightly, but online detectives have been connecting dots nonstop. One detail they keep bringing up is Beyonce at the Michael Jackson Victory Tour back in 1984, and this is where things start getting people talking even more. The wild part? Some folks are saying she didn't look extremely young in those moments, and that's what's making people raise their eyebrows. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone super young moving around in a packed stadium like that? For some, it just doesn't seem to line up. But here's where the theory twists. If Beyonce was actually closer to 9 or 10 years old in 1984, that would push her birth year closer to 1974. And suddenly, people feel like it connects with the idea of her being a huge Michael Jackson fan at that age. Still, none of this is confirmed, but the conversation just keeps getting louder. And it doesn't stop there, not even close. Some people who say they were around back then claim there used to be a video of Beyonce dancing before that tour, and according to them, that clip told a completely different story about her age. But now, that footage is nowhere to be found, gone like it never even existed. And here's where it gets even deeper. People are saying her team, known for being extremely protective of her image, allegedly had that video wiped from the internet to keep everything looking perfectly consistent. Whether that's true or not, the idea alone has people talking nonstop. They even gave it a name, calling it the Knowles Vault Effect. And that just sounds mysterious by itself. The theory is simple. Anything that doesn't match the image gets quietly removed, like it was never there in the first place. And to be fair, people point to moments where certain photos disappeared fast, like those unflattering Super Bowl shots that suddenly became harder to find. So now the question keeps popping up. Is it really that wild to think footage or pictures could vanish if they didn't match Beyoncé's carefully managed image? That's the kind of question keeping this whole conversation alive, because her brand has always been about looking flawless and timeless no matter what. And then Gabrielle Union enters the chat, and that's where even more eyebrows start going up. She was born in 1972 and once said in an interview that she and Beyoncé were friends as teenagers, and that detail alone has people seriously confused. Because if you follow the official timeline, that kind of friendship doesn't really line up the way you'd expect. Think about it. If Gabrielle was around 18 or 19, Beyoncé would have been about 9 or 10, and that's not exactly the kind of age gap where people usually move as peers. So naturally, some folks hear that and go, something feels off here. Now here's where the theory gets even deeper. Some are saying if Beyoncé were actually born closer to 1974, that would put her much closer in age to Gabrielle. And suddenly, that whole teenage friends comment starts making a lot more sense. And that has people wondering if that statement revealed more than it was meant to, even if unintentionally. And of course, it doesn't stop there. Some believe that over the years, certain photos of Beyoncé and her mom were carefully selected or edited to keep everything looking consistent, and to quiet down speculation about her age and family background. When you start stacking all these claims together, people say the story just keeps getting more layered and harder to ignore. It's not just one random claim floating around, it's a bunch of small details that people keep picking apart and questioning over time. Some are convinced the entire story around Beyoncé's age and family timeline was carefully shaped from the very start, with every interview, every photo, and every public appearance lined up perfectly to avoid any slip-ups. That kind of control is exactly why people keep side-eyeing anything that doesn't match the narrative. But then you've got others pushing back hard, saying this is just internet speculation going way too far, with small coincidences being stretched into something way bigger than it really is. And to be fair, none of these claims have been backed by solid proof, and that's where the whole thing starts to fall apart for a lot of people. Still, the conversation refuses to fade away. Every time a new detail pops up, it pulls more people right back into the debate, and things get even messier because this didn't just stay online. It allegedly reached into the music industry itself. Back in the early 2000s, someone claiming to be a former Columbia Records employee came forward and said, Solange Knowles is actually Beyoncé's biological daughter. And that statement alone had people completely stunned and talking nonstop. Now, this same person didn't stop there. They started throwing out a bunch of other wild claims about different celebrities, talking about things they supposedly heard while working at the label. They brought up rumors about Jay-Z's mother, Mariah Carey's early career, and even more shocking industry gossip, but they also admitted they couldn't actually verify most of it. But here's the part that really caught people's attention. They insisted the one thing they could verify was that Solange is Beyoncé's daughter, not her sister. According to them, they saw a driver's license on a manager's computer that allegedly showed a 1974 birth year. And that's the detail they keep circling back to again and again. They also claim there's about a 14-year age gap between Beyoncé and Solange. And some people say that makes the theory seem possible on paper. Because if Beyoncé were actually a teenager in the mid-80s, then the timeline would look completely different from what's been officially shared. And this is exactly where people start connecting every little detail, building their own version of the story piece by piece, even though none of it has been confirmed with solid evidence. Because if that timeline were actually true, it would mean Beyoncé was already dealing with major life moments while the public believed she was much younger. And that idea alone is what keeps these rumors alive. Some people say that could explain why the family has always been so tight and controlled about what gets shared and what stays private. Every appearance, every interview, every small detail feels carefully managed. And that level of precision has people wondering what's really being protected behind the scenes. But at the same time, there's a huge difference between rumors and real proof, and that's something a lot of people keep pointing out. Claims from unnamed sources, stories about documents no one else has seen, and industry gossip don't exactly stand strong as evidence no matter how dramatic they sound. And that's where the whole theory starts to lose ground for many people who are looking for actual facts. Still, the mystery keeps pulling people back in. Once these kinds of theories start rolling, they don't just disappear, they evolve with every new detail that pops up. And that's when some start saying the whole sister dynamic could be a cover story for something bigger, like a hidden early life situation being kept completely private. That idea alone is what keeps this theory alive in so many conversations. But then another detail gets tossed into the mix, and it's about Girls' Time, the group Beyonce was in before Destiny's Child. Most people remember their Star Search appearance, especially that famous clip where they lost the competition, and it's usually said to have happened around 1993. But here's where things start to feel shaky for some. This source claims there's a big inconsistency, saying the segment might have actually been filmed earlier, possibly in the late 80s. And if that were true, it would completely flip the timeline people have believed for years. And it gets even more confusing when Nikki Taylor enters the conversation. She was part of the group and is said to have been born in 1975, which starts raising eyebrows when you line everything up. Because if the 1993 date is correct, that would make her about 18, while Beyonce would have been around 11. And that kind of age gap in a group like that has people asking questions. So now some folks are looking at all this and saying it doesn't quite line up the way it should. And to make things even more suspicious in their eyes, people noticed that details about Nicki's age on her Wikipedia page disappeared. And that just added more heat to the speculation already spreading online. And once that detail started making rounds, people really began side-eyeing everything connected to that era. Because when information starts disappearing or suddenly changing, even for normal reasons, it instantly makes some folks feel like there's something happening behind the scenes. Now, to be fair, pages online get edited all the time, and not every update means anything unusual is going on. But in a story like this, every tiny change gets blown up and pulled into the bigger narrative, and that's exactly what's happening here. Some people are fully convinced these timeline gaps, age questions, and missing details all connect into one bigger picture that's been carefully managed for years. They believe nothing is random, and every piece fits into a version of the story that hasn't been fully revealed. Others, though, are not buying it at all. They point out that mixing rumors, secondhand claims, and internet edits doesn't magically turn into solid proof, no matter how interesting or dramatic it sounds. Still, the debate refuses to slow down. Once people start digging into something like this, they don't just drop it, they keep going deeper. And now some are even saying the Knowles family might be covering their tracks on purpose, knowing how fast things spread online. And that idea alone keeps the speculation alive, especially when details seem to shift or disappear over time. And for anyone wondering why the focus isn't really on the other group members, the claim going around is that their ages may have been adjusted too, just so everyone could appear younger and more marketable. According to what's being said, that kind of move wasn't unusual back then, it was part of the industry playbook. People are even comparing this to stories from other artists where ages were reportedly changed to fit a certain image. The point they keep making is simple. Shaping a star's age was seen as smart business, and that idea has been talked about for years in the industry. Some even go as far as saying most of the original Destiny's Child lineup, except Latavia, had certain details tweaked, though none of this has ever been officially confirmed. Still, it adds another layer to everything people are already questioning and debating. Then things take another dramatic turn. This time, the claim involves a relative named Aang. According to the story, after a tense moment at a family gathering where emotions were running high, Aang allegedly shared personal claims with others, saying Solange is Beyonce's biological daughter, and that statement alone had people reacting fast. The story even brings up comments about Beyonce's body when she was younger, suggesting people used certain phrases jokingly or as coded remarks. And that only adds more mystery for those who already believe the rumor. Once details like that start spreading, they take on a life of their own, because now it's not just about timelines or documents anymore, it turns into personal stories, family tension, and things people claim were said behind closed doors. Some people grab onto those moments and treat them like missing puzzle pieces finally snapping into place. They argue that when you mix alleged family comments, industry practices, and all these scattered claims together, it starts to form a picture they feel can't be ignored. But others are quick to shut that down. They point out that stories shared during emotional moments or personal conflicts aren't always reliable sources. Feelings can twist situations, stretch details, or even create versions of events that don't fully match reality. And that's exactly why this whole situation stays split right down the middle. One side is convinced there's something deeper happening behind the scenes, while the other side sees it as a mix of rumors, misunderstandings, and online speculation spiraling way out of control. Either way, this conversation refuses to stay quiet and keeps popping back up, pulling more people in every single time. So now it really comes down to what sounds more believable to you. Was a cousin speaking out after a heated family moment and things got exaggerated? Or is there actually a much bigger story hiding behind decades of fame? That question alone is what keeps people locked into this debate. But then, the rumors take another sharp turn. Some start saying if this theory were true, the father could have been Beyoncé's ex, Lindell Locke. People point out that he dated her when they were younger, and some even claim he shares certain features with Solange, which only adds more chatter to the situation. And the second Lindell's name comes up, opinions get strong fast. Some paint him as the bitter ex, the one who lost out and never really moved on, while others start questioning if that image was shaped on purpose. Because there's also a claim floating around that this whole narrative may have been carefully built to make Beyoncé appear completely blameless. In the public story, Lindell is often described as the one who made mistakes in the relationship, while Beyoncé is shown as someone focused, private, and moving carefully, and that contrast has people talking even more. But then you've got people bringing up other stories saying her image might be a lot more layered behind the scenes, and that just adds even more depth to this whole conversation. So the theory goes like this. If there were rumors out there that could damage her image, shaping the narrative in a certain way could help shut them down fast and keep everything under control. And some people even point to how Tina Knowles has spoken publicly, often focusing heavily on Beyoncé and Solange while sharing less about her own story, and that only keeps the questions coming. When you step back and take it all in, it's not hard to see why this topic keeps pulling people in and sparking non-stop discussion. You've got rumors about timelines, questions about ages, stories from supposed insiders, and then personal accounts adding even more drama into the mix. Some people are fully convinced all of this points to a carefully managed narrative, where every detail has been shaped over the years to protect a certain image. They say the consistency looks way too polished to be random, and that's exactly what keeps them digging deeper and connecting more dots. But then there's the other side seeing it in a completely different way. They argue this is exactly how rumors grow, a mix of coincidences, old stories, and speculation all blending together until it starts sounding believable, even without real proof behind it. And that's where things start to fall apart for them. Because at the end of the day, none of these claims have been backed by confirmed records or solid evidence that everyone can agree on. And that's a huge gap that can't just be ignored, no matter how dramatic or convincing the theory might sound. Still, the mystery doesn't go away. Once a story like this grabs attention, it keeps resurfacing again and again, pulling more people right back into the conversation. Some people are saying all of this could be an attempt to lock one version of the story in place forever, like making sure the public only remembers a certain side. And that idea alone is what keeps the speculation alive and moving nonstop. Now bring Richard Lawson back into the mix because rumors claim he's been quietly fueling these conversations. And when it comes to motive, people have a lot to say about why he would even do that in the first place. A lot of the talk centers around how he may have felt after Tina's memoir came out. Imagine being a father figure in a family for years, only to feel like your role got minimized or barely mentioned in a major book read by millions. That kind of thing can hit hard. So some are saying if he feels like his place in that story was reduced or rewritten, he might not feel as protective about keeping family matters private anymore, and that's where people start connecting even more dots. And when you tie that into the 2024 divorce settlement, people start looking even closer at what could really be happening behind the scenes. That's exactly why the divorce keeps getting pulled back into the conversation, because some believe it might connect to everything else being said. When you've got legal agreements, silence clauses, and a high-profile split all in the same situation, it naturally gets people wondering what's actually being kept under wraps. Some people believe the timing of everything is just way too convenient to ignore. They look at the rumors, the alleged tension, and then those legal restrictions and start thinking it all fits into a bigger picture that hasn't been fully revealed yet. Others, though, keep it much simpler. They point out that non-disclosure agreements are extremely common in situations like this, especially when public figures are involved, and it doesn't automatically mean there's some massive secret hiding behind it. Still, the speculation keeps building fast. When you mix fame, family, and unanswered questions, people are always going to keep digging and looking for more. One detail that really has people talking is how specific that agreement is, especially the part that reportedly blocks him from discussing present or future family members in the next generation. That's not exactly everyday wording, and it's the kind of detail that makes people pause and look twice. Because according to this theory, if Solange were actually Beyoncé's daughter, then her son Jules would technically be Beyoncé's grandson. And some are saying that by agreeing not to speak on that next generation, Richard may have also agreed to stay silent on anything that could reveal the real family timeline. And that right there is what keeps people questioning everything even more. And just when it feels like everything has already been picked apart, another layer gets added to the story. Now, people are starting to question how tightly controlled celebrity narratives really are, especially when it comes to family history and personal timelines. Some are saying this situation shows how powerful image management can be, where every public detail is carefully chosen and anything that doesn't fit gets pushed out of sight. That idea alone has people looking back at old interviews, appearances, and even small comments trying to spot anything that might have been overlooked. But at the same time, others are pushing back hard, saying this is exactly how speculation spirals. One theory leads to another, and before you know it, everything starts getting twisted into something much bigger than it actually is. Still, the reason this story won't fade is simple. It sits right at the intersection of fame, secrecy, and unanswered questions. And when you've got all three in one place, people are always going to wonder if there's something more just under the surface. So now the debate keeps growing, with every new angle pulling even more attention and no clear answers in sight. And just when you think the conversation might finally slow down, it pulls people right back in again. Now, the focus is shifting to how long a story like this could realistically stay hidden if there was any truth behind it. Some people are saying there's no way something this big could stay quiet for decades without solid proof leaking out somewhere along the line. They argue that with so many people involved, family, industry insiders, media, something concrete would have surfaced by now if it were real. But then others come in with a different take. They believe that when powerful names, strong legal agreements, and carefully managed images are involved, it's not impossible for certain details to stay buried or controlled for years. And that back and forth is exactly what keeps this debate alive and loud. One side is demanding real evidence, while the other keeps pointing to patterns, timing, and small details they feel add up to something bigger. At this point, the story almost feeds itself. Every question leads to another, every claim sparks a new theory, and the mystery just keeps growing with no clear ending in sight. And now the conversation takes another turn, because people are starting to ask a different kind of question. Who actually benefits from all this staying unclear? Some are saying if everything lines up with the official story, then keeping things polished and consistent protects a global brand that's been built for years. In that case, silence and structure would make total sense. But then others flip it and say the rumors themselves are what keep the spotlight burning bright. The mystery, the debate, the constant questions, all of it keeps people watching, talking, and digging deeper. And that's where things get even more interesting, because now it's not just about what's true or not, it's about perception, attention, and how powerful a story can become when nobody can fully prove or fully disprove it. Still, there's one thing both sides can agree on. Without clear, verified evidence, this all stays in the world of speculation, no matter how detailed or convincing certain claims might sound. But that hasn't stopped anyone yet. The theories keep evolving, the conversations keep growing, and this story just keeps finding new life every time it resurfaces online. Now listen, Nobody is confirming any of this as fact, but the rumors are definitely making noise, and people can't stop talking about it. There's word going around that some serious family tea has been slipping out lately, and now everyone's trying to figure out where it's really coming from. Some believe Richard is way too professional to be out here speaking directly, and if anything is getting leaked, it might be coming from people around him rather than him himself, which just adds another layer to the mystery. But no matter where it's coming from, one thing is clear. It's keeping this conversation alive and louder than ever. The questions, the theories, the speculation, it's all still building with no clear answers in sight. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think there's any truth to this theory, or is this just another rumor that got completely out of control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can jump into the conversation. I'll catch you in the next one.